and gentlemen, and welcome to the second Tech Talk on Air, brought to you by Pldt Enterprise in partnership with One News. I'm Danny Laurel, your host for this afternoon. It has been a while since the lockdown began, when we were all still trying to grasp the idea of staying in, working from home, and completely digitizing our everyday tasks. It has also been 5 months since our first Tech Talk on Air, where various business leaders share their insights on the foreseen changes in their respective industries. And now that we are only 4 months away from bidding 2020 goodbye, it is time to zero in on 5 essential industries. These are the academe, banking, e-commerce, healthcare, and the public sector. These are the 5 industries that have not only thrived but have changed the ways in which we live and the ways that we work, and we recognize them as the e-industries of today. I hope you guys are as excited as I am, as we have an esteemed roster of global leaders in our presence at this event today, who are also eager to share and discuss their learnings, experiences, new strategies, as well as various solutions available and upcoming for these key e-industries. Now let's get right to it. To open this afternoon session, it is my privilege to introduce and welcome on the screen the President and CEO of ePLDT Group and Senior Vice President and Head of PLDT and Smart Enterprise Business Groups, Mr. Jovi Hernandez.
Thank you, Danny, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of PLDT Enterprise and One News Channel, I would like to thank all our viewers for tuning in to Tech Talk on Air. In response to all the disruption that has taken place in 2020, key movers and shakers from across industries have transformed their operations in less than half a year, allowing these sectors to emerge as e-industries. These industries, namely e-learning, e-banking, e-commerce, e-government, and e-health sectors, have set an all-new standard for how we as a society can expect and demand service. At the recent 2020 first half disclosure of PLDT, our chairman and CEO, Mr. Manuel V. Pangilinan, said that we as a group will be helping our customers rebuild their lives and livelihoods with powerful connectivity combined with innovative digital solutions. Today's discussions are both a response and a testament to that promise. Together with our partners and customers, we have identified solutions that have allowed them to reinvent the wheel and effectively develop systems and solutions that better cater to the needs of society today. It's been difficult, but the results are unparalleled, allowing services to become even more inclusive and effective. It is my sincere hope that today's discussions provide you with real actionable insights so that you may all likewise transform your enterprises for the benefit of a greater majority. After all, the true measure of success for any change is the number of lives it is able to positively impact. I assure you that we at PLDT Enterprise will be with you every step of the way as you endeavor to make a difference in the lives of those you serve. Thank you very much, and a pleasant good afternoon to all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jovi Hernandez. And now it's time to take a look at those e-industries, beginning with the academe. This year has been tough, especially for our students and teachers. We all have been witness to how they have been drastically affected by the sudden virtual shift. But despite all of that, we have seen several measures being undertaken by various sectors of society to remedy this concern in preparing schools for the opening of the academic year on October 4th. Let's find out how the academe has been adapting to these changes, as well as what lies ahead for the future of learning here in our country. To start off, let us all welcome First Vice President and Sales Head of PLDT Enterprise, Mr. Vic Tria.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of PLDT Enterprise, it is my pleasure to be joining you all this afternoon as we take a closer look at one of the most contended topics today, e-learning. Having kids myself and a teacher for a wife, I understand the worry that plagues both students and schools given this sudden shift. But working for a technology company such as PLDT has allowed me to take on a different lens. Our chairman and CEO, MVP, often says that technology is an equalizer of opportunities. And this belief has taken on a new iteration in light of the needs of the academic sector. Within the group, we've taken on the adage, no learner left behind, which serves as both a challenge to us and a promise to our customers. Inspired by this mantra, we quickly designed solutions that would enable us to accommodate such an extraordinary shift. Although the shift had initially posed many difficulties, I believe that it is forging a path towards a more sustainable model for education. With this, our immediate goal became to enable students to continue on with learning. We wanted to provide them with the means to study from virtually anywhere, regardless of what was happening. But this was just the beginning. Cognizant of our role in ensuring that no learners left behind, we at PLDT began forming strong alliances with both public and private sector institutions to make this vision a reality. In a way, we were lucky that the pandemic began at the brink of summer here in the Philippines. It afforded us time to research and experiment so that we could successfully implement systems that would best benefit our partners. Among key milestones for us was our partnership with the Department of Education. We first provided our students and teachers with free access to their learning management system, the DepEd Commons, which is utilized by over 8 million users today. Still, we recognized that we needed to add another dimension to this if we were truly after equitable education. That is why we likewise deployed our Smart School in a Bag, which provided institutions in far-flung areas with a tablet and connectivity capabilities, allowing them to access the platform despite the lack of tools. Likewise, our partners from Gabay Guro provided teachers with platforms and e-learning contents so that they be equipped with the training and knowledge to empower students from across the country. We've also partnered with two of the country's largest and most formidable educational organizations, the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines and the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities. We deployed a number of online applications designed for remote teaching, as well as connectivity, study plans, mobile and fiber, and curated services for e-learning, allowing schools from all over the country with the flexibility that would enable them to inject their teaching philosophies amidst the limitations imposed by the current setup. These key institutions have proven to be strategic partners in crafting our e-learning framework. Through rigorous collaboration, we have developed an expansive suite of e-learning solutions that are simple but relevant and flexible. Growing up, I was taught the three age-old R's of learning: reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I realized that even long before the pandemic, today's students are of a different kind, given all the technology and information at their disposal. Quoting Jeff Spencer of Microsoft, these three quintessential R's are joined by another, and perhaps the more pertinent and relevant R today: rethinking. Education has long been evolving, but it was the pandemic that allowed us to finally reframe our thinking and transform today's educational practices. The question is, how can we rethink education? The shift to online learning has definitely allowed today's educators with the means to transform their operations and cater to more flexible pedagogies. Children who will start school from now on will grow up to be workers and leaders in a digital first world, one that will demand new skills and new ways of thinking. And it is the technologies we deploy and implement today that will set the groundwork for this. PLDT has been key in the augmentation of e-learning programs with several of our services. First of which are basic connectivity. We have expanded our network by 40% over the last 6 months, a figure that usually takes more than a year or two to accomplish. Such improvement was done specifically to accommodate the need for bandwidth-heavy learning management systems. A large number of resources are being invested as well on 5G capabilities to further fortify the quality and availability of our network. We've also improved our offers so that schools can shoulder the data needs of their students. Our GigaStudy offering is fortified by our BizLoad platform, enabling students with the means to be provided with a steady monthly data allocation. Our enterprise-grade Beyond Fiber comes with minimum 90% of subscribed bandwidth at 90% reliability, providing both students and teachers with the means to stay online without worry. It can even be bundled with various collaboration tools such as Microsoft and Google education platforms. To date, we have deployed over 250,000 of these education collaboration licenses, allowing schools with the means to better connect with students. On top of this, all our offers can be bundled with enterprise-grade cybersecurity, as online applications are hosted on the telco secured network of Vitro data centers. As you can see, we're just getting started. Our offers are beginning to become more sophisticated as the sector likewise begins to adapt new methods of learning. As we join the academic sector in its quest to rethink the ways we educate, we at PLDT will continue to work with both public and private sector organizations to ensure that no learner is left behind. After all, what inspires us is to see our children always in pursuit of knowledge. Thank you very much and a pleasant afternoon to all. Now, let's hear it from the leaders of the associations we're closely working with to revolutionize the country's e-learning experience. President of the Catholic Education Association of the Philippines, Father Elmer Dizon, and President of the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, Dr. Carol Enriquez.
The Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines has around 1,500 member schools. Its vision is to transform the world. How? Through the leadership of people educated in two principles: the principle of community and also the principle of service. This is being challenged by the present pandemic, and we need to adapt. We need to find different ways in order to accomplish our goals. One of them is technology. Since the beginning of April, we formed a task force in order to address our concerns about the modes of delivery. We have to grapple with our own situations. Everybody is experimenting, trying to find ways to best address continuity of education in the most realistic and practical ways.
Technology would be a great partner, and it would solve a lot of things for a lot of universities, especially since we have to go digital for the moment. Partnering with PLDT goes beyond technology. It has allowed us to give different options to our students in terms of various data plans that they need according to their needs and budgets. And it has allowed us to create guidelines for our stakeholders so that they're able to manage and make best use of whatever Wi-Fi connection or whatever data plans our students and our faculties would have.
Only human interaction facilitated by online technology. They can use email, other platforms to upload their own learning materials. Our teachers need to upgrade themselves with the available technology that the schools have adopted so that they are more technologically equipped in order to deliver instruction.
The new normal now entails doing everything digitally, from application to enrollment to online libraries, and even guidance counseling. The reimagined business model of universities will be built on online and remote learning platforms and courses.
Is on this area of the expertise of PLDT that somehow CEP is quite confident that it will be properly assisted. Thank you, PLDT, for this opportunity to bring across our desire and commitment to continue our mission of educating the young.
To succeed and to thrive, both providers of technology-driven education must find solutions together.
Thank you, Mr. Tria, Father Elmer, and Dr. Carol. E-learning truly has a big learning curve, but the steps we need to undertake allow us to redefine the academic sector for the better. Now, to shed light on the future of e-learning here in the Philippines, our next guest speaker has been appointed Undersecretary of the Department of Education by President Duterte upon the recommendation of Secretary Briones. He has been tasked with supervising 3 major services and 4 major divisions. Let us all welcome Undersecretary for Administration of the Department of Education, Yusek Alain del Bustamante Pascua. Hello, Yusek Alain, and welcome. Sir, just a brief overview of what's going on in terms of the plans of the Department of Education when it comes to e-learning.
Hello, thank you for that. Our Secretary Leonor Mactolis Briones, always reminds us that education must continue even in times of crisis, whether it might be a calamity, disaster, emergency, quarantine, or even war. The COVID-19 public health crisis has pushed the Department of Education to make use of technology in making sure that education does continue and to deploy multiple learning delivery modalities, including online distance learning, in a very short period of time. Here, the DepEd Digital Rise program comes into play. The Digital Rise program forms part of what we call the Public Schools of the Future framework, which the administration strand, the Office of the Undersecretary for Administration has formulated, and under the leadership of Secretary Leonor Mactolis Briones, and in line with the Philippine Development Plan of 2017 to 2022, under the present administration of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, this Digital Rise program is one of the fundamental pillars of what we call the Public Schools of the Future framework. It is in support of the Sulong Edukalidad, the DepEd's initiative in response to the rapidly changing learning environment of present and future learners, which will introduce aggressive reforms to globalize the quality of basic education in the Philippines. While the Digital Rise program is a multi-framework or multifaceted framework, specific aspects of the program were activated as a response to the pandemic. We have started this long time ago, but there are several programs which we were pushed to start when the pandemic came out early this year. I will be discussing some of these specific programs today. One crucial mechanism in these challenging times is that the DepEd Commons. The DepEd Commons is an online platform to support the continuous delivery of basic education to Filipino learners. It is an online platform for public school teachers to support distance learning modalities, which can be accessed through the DepEd website precisely to continue the delivery of basic education to our children. We started with only about 19 users in March 14. This is the time when quarantine was imposed in Metro Manila and then the entire Luzon. By mid-July, or in the span of 4 months, we have reached more than 8.5 million users registered in DepEd Commons. Part of the success of the DepEd Commons is the zero rating given by the country's telecommunications company, like Globe and PLDT Smart, and all other telecommunications company made access to DepEd Commons free for all of their subscribers. so they can enter the platform even without cell phone load or internet data credits. It is worth to know that these telecommunications companies, they may be competition to one another. They all helped and collaborated with the Department of Education in delivering free access to the DepEd Commons. It is through this kind of partnerships that enable us to make leaps and bounds in response to the challenges brought about by the pandemic. Another project under the Digital Rise is what we call the Public Education Network, or we call it PEN. It is the ultimate connectivity project of the department that aims to be resilient, independently reliant, and cost-effective. It aims to connect all public schools to all DepEd offices, making data transfer possible even without an internet connection. DepEd is working with the DICT, or the Department of Education, the Department of Communications and Information Technology, or DICT, in making this project a success. I will be discussing later other programs that we still have, but because of the time limit, I'd just like to add that the President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, has mentioned the PEN in his recent State of the Nation address and committed to seeing the project to completion before his term ends in 2022. So this is now where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yusek, for those insights and updates. I just want to ask, sir, do you envision that this e-learning and this new roadmap of the DepEd will really replace the face-to-face education? When we talk about the quality, is it reasonable to assume po that there might be delays in learning? Is that something that you have looked into? And of course, difficulty in rolling out this services, especially during these difficult times?
The requirements of today's situation is to enable continuity of education without having face-to-face encounters. That is the challenge that we now have to address. And because of the seeming impossibility of having face-to-face encounters like the traditional classroom teaching, then we will have to resort to distance learning and to what we call blended learning, where the different modalities like online platforms, television and radio broadcasts, and even printed modules are combined or blended together so that we could deliver the education to our children, not inside the classroom, not in schools, but in their houses or in their homes.
Sir, do we have the skills needed for this? Because the teachers and the professors will need to significantly upskill. What are your plans for training them and allowing them to do the same type of execution but in a remote manner?
Prior to the pandemic, we have already started training our teachers in the use of technology. We have in fact adopted the direction of DepEd to use open educational resources. And in our effort to go towards open educational resources, or OER, we started also capacitating our teachers on the use of available technologies so that they could deliver their teaching in a much easier way. Para sa ganon ay mas madali yung pagtuturo nila sa loob ng classroom. So, nag-start na ito ng mga pagsasanay. Nag-start kami sa malalayong lugar, and we have mobilized our newly created unit, Educational Technology Unit, under the ICTS in DepEd, and they started training our teachers sa paggagamit ngayon ng tinatawag nating new and old technologies. And last month, we have reached out to more than 400,000 teachers, and we have capacitated them to use available technology now in delivering basic education to the children at home.
Sir, how long po is this roadmap going to be? You mentioned that you're already doing it now, you're starting to roll it out. Are you envisioning blended learning to be continuing with or without the pandemic? Or is this just broadcasting on television, radio, and teachers not doing face-to-face learning? Is this something that you envision is the future of academe here in the Philippines?
Itong TV at saka broadcast, TV and radio broadcast, when we started looking at this, it is only to answer for as another platform to reach out to students. No? But when we started discussing and we started doing the TV and radio episodes, we realized that TV and radio broadcasting can be a permanent tool, in delivering education to our learners wherever they are, whether they are in isolated places or in far-flung areas. Kaya sabi namin, itong TV at saka yung radio broadcasting can be a permanent fixture in Philippine public education. And we would be proposing that they become, or that the DepEd will really develop the TV and radio broadcast so that we can reach out to the students. Kahit na meron na yan face-to-face later on, meron na yan traditional classroom instruction, ang tingin namin yung TV at saka yung radio, while they might be old technologies, may have to be blended with new technologies para sa ganon, mas ma-facilitate yung pagdi-deliver natin ng education. Aside from TV and radio, of course, we have the DepEd Commons, an online platform, and we have other kinds of platforms that we would want to do. For example, under the PEN, the Public Education Network, we will be connecting all schools so that all schools can interact with one another. And the schools can also be connected directly to the offices in the regions, in the divisions, and even in the central office, so that we could push contents from these different areas to the schools, and then they can learn from one another. It's the blending of all these available platforms of old and new technologies, merging of old and new technologies, that we see what we call the Digital Rice Program coming into fruition, coming into realization, and we think that we can deliver education much better by using all these tools and available technologies.
Okay, thank you, Yusek. So from a temporary solution, dapat it's actually become something more sustainable in the future. Now at this point, I'd just like to reintroduce to our stream here Mr. Victory of PLDT to have a chat with the both of us. Hi, Sir Vic. I just wanted to jump in on what Yusek has been saying, that you've been able to provide solutions, for example, making data free for learning. Is this something that PLDT is really looking at? Is this your first venture into the education sector? Have you actually already been assisting the academic sector, or is this something completely new and that you're now starting to focus on?
Thank you, Danny. The PLDT Group fully supports e-learning, inspired by our chairman and CEO with MVP's vision of no learner left behind. With end-to-end solutions, we were able to make e-learning a reality together with our customers and partners. Beyond just connectivity, we have designed different solutions, learning management systems. DepEd Commons, actually, we're supporting that with DepEd, collaboration tools, and various smart gig or wireless study plans and PLDT Beyond Fiber offers, which come bundled with e-learning packages. We have to be agile enough to curate plans and services that could be implemented across varied setups and capabilities. We have Gabay Guru contents, we have School in a Bag for remote areas, and Signal TV in support of DepEd also to reach wider area for broadcast learning. Along with this, we started expanding and fortifying the quality and availability of PLDT and Smart Network, which today has reached an unprecedented 40% expansion in the last 6 months. And a large number of resources are also being invested in our 5G capabilities to further support e-learning and its future in our country.
Thank you, Sir Vic. Yusek, can you comment, sir, because we have the technology and PLDT and other networks have actually partnered with you to bring this to their homes, but there's still the question of a lot of parents are working from home right now, and they're sharing the space with the student. How do you address, sir, those other issues, especially when it comes to you need to share technology in the home? Is this a conducive environment for learning? And is there a way to circumvent the problems?
Of course, when you say, are the homes or are our houses conducive to learning? Well, we have not planned for this pandemic to push us in the four corners of our homes to be our own classrooms. No,
Right.
We have been forced to stay put and learn either in front of a TV or listening to radio or making online connections so that we could access the DepEd Commons and other available platforms. Of course, the ideal environment is always the school, where we go to the school and then we study there in front of our teachers and with our classmates. But given this pandemic, we are now forced to innovate and to adapt to whatever measure we need to do in order that education must continue. So we designed different ways of delivering education. We have the DepEd Commons there. We now have to use TV episodes, and then we now have to broadcast also audio episodes for the radios. And we also ask our teachers to coordinate with our parents and to distribute printed materials and textbooks, and also get in touch with the learners using the cellular phones or other means of communication that have not been used before when we were always teaching education in the four corners of our classroom. So we have to adapt to this kind of situation, and we must ensure that the kind of education that we should be giving them in the classroom will be the same kind of education that we will be providing them at the comfort of their homes or at the discomfort of their homes. So, medyo kanyan, kailangan natin ayusin talaga para sa ganon ay tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Otherwise, kung hindi natin makikita yung mga challenges na yan, tsaka yung mga pagkakaiba na yan, eh mahihirapan din tayong magpatuloy o magbigay ng edukasyon sa ating mga kabataan o sa ating mga estudyante. Total, they are already inside their homes, they are enjoying lots of time inside their houses, then let's take advantage of that opportunity na hindi naman sila lumalabas at hindi sila pinapayagang lumabas ng bahay para sa ganon ay mas maibigay natin at mas magkaroon ng kahulugan yung pag-stay nila sa bahay. And the best thing to do there is to let them study. Give all the opportunities, give all the access to available platforms para sa ganon ay magtuloy-tuloy pa rin yung pag-aaral nila. No? Yan yung ginagawa natin sa ngayon. But of course, the situation is not ideal.
Yes, sir. But as you mentioned, there's actually a silver lining to that. This is the time to look at alternative ways of learning also that are outside of the classroom. There's a lot to be learned also, this, apart from textbooks and just all of these things that we learn inside the classroom. So this is the perfect opportunity to do so together with, of course, technologies that help us and also accessibility to these technologies, especially for the poorest of the poor and the students that need the education. Sir Vic, just jumping off on Yusek Alain's point, none of us anticipated this would happen. None of us wanted to all have, education from home, etc. But given all of these things, how does this shape the future? How does e-learning now shape the future of the academe?
Well, I think this is history in the making. I know that the current setup has its challenges, but what we have in place is changing the landscape of education. In a study conducted by Research Institute of America, for example, they found that e-learning increases retention rates by up to 25 to 60% as compared to face-to-face learning, which is said to only have a retention rate of 8 to 10%. That essentially means that students can learn up to 5 times more in the e-learning setup. Even post-COVID or after COVID, e-learning could be the future of education. And we are excited to see how this setup will allow us to take local education to the next level. But this is not to say that we undermine or disregard the struggles that this transition poses. No. We recognize the challenges of making this shift. And we at PLDT are committed to enabling e-learning to become a reality for every single student. We are with you in this transition, and we are committed to helping you make the most of it so that we can all come out stronger and more capable.
Thank you so much for those words. So that was, of course, Yusek Alain and Mr. Victria. We appreciate them taking the time to be with us this afternoon. And now, guys, let's move on to the next segment, the e-banking industry. According to the 2019 Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Financial Inclusion Survey, there are still 51.2 million Filipinos that are unbanked, while a great majority of the population still prefers going to brick-and-mortar bank branches. Cash was once king for us Filipinos pre-pandemic, but we have to evolve and adapt during this short span of time, which now puts more dependence on connectivity and security. Here to share with us his insights as well as the current trends in the e-banking industry, please welcome PLDT Enterprises' first Vice President and Head of Enterprise Core Business Solutions, Mr. Jojo Hendrano.
Thank you very much, Danny, and a very pleasant good afternoon to our Tech Talk viewers. Please allow me to share with you PLDT Enterprises' perspectives on e-banking. Every industry that you have and will hear here at Tech Talk will have their own pivot stories. Each story is unique, but all equally interesting. The profound part of the banking industry pivot to me is essentially in the past, when I would think about going to a bank, is I would really have to go to a bank. There's actually one here at my condo, but has been closed since we emerged from MECQ. But now when I think about going to a bank, it's about opening my smartphone. And doing such has opened the doors to transactions that I do so much more of now than before. Sending money, paying for something I purchased online, paying for my family's insurance policy, and even sending loan, and even giving Sunday church donations. I used to go to an ATM every 3 days, and now it's every 3 weeks. While the negative economic effects of the pandemic directly impacts this industry, much has been said about our latest GDP figures. A lot of branches also remain closed, banks announcing lower net earnings and bad loans at a 6-year high. Though not as bad as during the Asian financial crisis of 1997, particularly due to intervening measures made by both public and private sectors. It would be noteworthy to mention how well this industry has weathered the crisis, quickly pivoting to bring their digital channels up to scale. The emerging presence also of purely digital players have helped satisfy the much-needed transaction demand. The BSP had also put intervention measures in place to help facilitate digital transfers and other related transactions. Electronic banking and other forms of digital transactions have now become a necessity rather than a choice. According to We Are Social's latest July report, the global COVID time increase of banking-related transactions, digital transactions, is at 26%. Compare that to here, where we are seeing much higher numbers. Boss Doy Vea over at Paymaya recently mentioned that Paymaya app volume grew more than 2.5 times, bills payment more than 3 times, government transactions more than 10 times, while other Philippine financial institutions similarly reporting breakthrough volumes on their digital channels, while brick-and-mortar ATM transaction volumes are down about 25%. Studies also showed that there is much more room to grow. According to the latest Global Web Index report, the Philippines is above the global average when it comes to digitally transferring money to family and friends, but are below the global curve when it comes to using mobile payment services. PLDT and Smart are fully committed to support the banking industry, and we believe that we play a key role in sustaining the all-time high digital footprint of this industry. And we have accepted this challenge, and while much work is still needed to be done, we commend the efforts of our teams that have sustained, if not improved, our industry-leading network quality, even with the sudden 30% increase in network traffic. Network upkeep and expansion continues even with the constraints of GCQ and ECQ, while needing to guarantee the safety of our frontliners and also our customers. It's interesting to note that with the higher digital footprint has brought with it also an escalation in cybersecurity attacks. Our Security Operations Center has helped avert 450,000 attacks, 11 times compared to last year. And we've also blocked 38 billion malicious website access, up 16 times from the previous year. Moving forward, to sustain and improve a financial company's capability to meet, sustain, and elevate the e-banking experience, we note 2 key areas of focus as we scope solutions that we believe can make the most impact. The first area revolves around needing to provide the best possible user experience, which then puts focus on channels and front ends. Beyond the app, it is also important to note how to digitally engage via service channels, email, social media, and the proper use of rich media like video, which has seen the most growth, not just for internal collaboration, but also for interacting with customers. The second area then relates to the systems and operations needed to support all of these transactions. It is imperative that these systems are made resilient and capable to handle the current and future demands, which will continue to increase. Zeroing in on the front-end user experience, it all starts with the main channel of focus, which will be the bank's application or website. We have helped a multitude of institutions on designing the best network to support and optimize the flow of data from customers engaged in an e-banking transactions. It doesn't stop there. We have practices also in ePLDT to help tie your systems together, specifically on Salesforce.com, Microsoft, or SAP solution stacks. Next is on cybersecurity. The increase in the digital footprint of a bank has also increased the threat vectors. Particularly vulnerable are the customers themselves, who continue to be targeted by phishing attacks and other forms of social engineering. Banks are vigilant in informing, educating, and protecting their customers, and our mature and robust cybersecurity practice at ePLDT can also help here. Our promise is to be as, if not more, vigilant in protecting your customers. The last UX element is the evolving and increasing use of video to interact and service a bank's customers. According to the same VR Social report referenced earlier, the Philippines ranks second globally next to India as wanting to use video conferencing more frequently even after the outbreak ends. This should not be ignored as a medium for customer interaction, and we can help given our rich solution partners and can design the best fit platform for your business, be it cloud, on-premise, or hybrid. Next major area, it's also critical to sustain these efforts via resilient systems and operations. Every major financial institution is looking into SD-WAN to transform and unlock new areas of performance, control, and reliability, not just for branch to HQ, but also to the cloud. MPLS performs so much better when bonded with SD-WAN, and with the addition of wireless secondary links, is easier than ever before. The pandemic has also created the need to support highly distributed and mobile workforces to maintain a bank's operations. Beyond connectivity is key here, enabling elevated collaboration, using systems that extend the corporate LAN all the way to the home, and again, ensuring that they remain secure. Lastly, but as important, is we invest to be the premier provider of data center, cloud, and disaster recovery solutions and services that give our customer the best flexibility and agility in deploying and designing future-proof systems. Allow me to then end by summarizing that PLDT Enterprise is uniquely positioned as an integrated provider that you can trust. We recognize and support the heightened role of the banks as a necessary agent to kickstart the economy, and hence committed to the success of this industry. At the end of the day, our ultimate measure is our vision, which is to make a positive impact on every single customer. And now, here to talk about the future of banking in the Philippines, former Chief Executive Officer of the Philippine Stock Exchange and the current Country Manager of ING Philippines, where his team is pioneering cashless payments for the country, Mr. Hans Sikat.
The COVID pandemic, in one sense, has accelerated the digital transformation of the local banking landscape. Not that it hasn't been moving in that direction, but I think it made it extremely clear that the winners of tomorrow are going to be those in the financial service industry that actually have a digital interface and perhaps a more digital platform where they can operate in. For many people in the Philippines, this basically just made it more important that we're able to actually interact in a more digital manner. We're really part of a whole digital ecosystem. What most people don't necessarily see are what's behind this, the corporate activities that go on. Today, the environment is primarily work from home or work from a remote location. And what does that mean? That means that there's a higher requirement for broadband and Wi-Fi connectivity. Because of this happening on the corporate side, you'll see higher demand for server data, which basically requires a lot of data center applications, and also BCPs, business continuity programs. And for us as a bank right now, the hiring is not trying to hire bankers as in marketing guys or finance guys. We're hiring more engineers. It means you're actually acting as an IT company. You're not necessarily acting in the old manner of being a bank or a brick and mortar operation that you just change the front end to digital. Customers want something that's simple, want something that's intuitive, and want something that works 24/7 no matter what. I think that more and more, a lot of the individual transactions will move on your mobile phone. We view ourselves not just as providers, but part of the ecosystem with PLDT and the PLDT group. They're not only providing us a service, but they're also a partner and a client. And in this whole ecosystem, as we take a look and work with PayMaya and how some of these items can actually be perhaps linked to our own digital platform. We do hope that this kind of ecosystem is something where we can continue to not just provide services to one another and to our own client bases, but also to help grow the Philippine economy as we're doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hendrano and Mr. Sikat. Cashless is truly the new king, and banks are now branchless, with ING Philippines pioneering branchless banking here in the Philippines. Now, we also have with us a special guest this afternoon. He is the Regional Manager for SD1, covering the Asia-Pacific, Japan, and China territory. He has held positions with SEV1, where he was the General Manager, APJ, in charge of a team covering 23 people and covering all marketing, sales, channel, and business development efforts. Now, prior to SEV1, he was the Vice President for Asia-Pacific at Extra Hop Networks, where he successfully defined and implemented the go-to-market strategy for the entire Asia-Pacific region, growing the team from 1 to 14 employees with $7 million in bookings in the second year. Let's all welcome Danny Smulders. Hi, Danny, and thank you so much for joining us all the way from Singapore.
Thanks for having me, Danny, and quite the intro, so thank you so much for that. So today, I'd like to talk a couple of minutes about really how COVID-19 and a global pandemic has been transformational, not only for the banking vertical, but pretty much every vertical that we've seen around. Now, if we look at specifically what it's done for banking or e-banking, you just mentioned e-payments or contactless payments are king. Well, I would even go further, right? It's king, queen, and the whole royal family. And with that comes, big demands on scale infrastructure. Can banks, build up this infrastructure themselves, or do they think about pushing things into cloud, be it public cloud or private cloud? A second thing that we've seen in our interactions with CXOs at large banks across Asia is that they've really started to realize that the digital branch now becomes the number one branch in terms of importance, but also in terms of customer interaction. And that interaction has completely changed in a sense that we now see video being used as a medium to interact with customers. We even saw some of the other banks move their call center agents to work from home. Mm-hmm. And a third major trend that we've seen is that some of these banks, let's say in more cash-reliant economies or countries such as the Philippines, but also Thailand, had to reimagine banking in a sense, how do you get a bank physically to your customer rather than the other way around? So we've seen things like mobile ATMs and what have you. Now, some of the major points that we've seen being brought up as challenges by CXOs and particularly in ASEAN is, as soon as you think scale, as soon as you think cloud, there are regulatory things that may stand in the way of doing that. That is usually the number one that comes up. We've seen countries such as Thailand accelerate that, move into the correct regulatory direction. But secondly, that always comes up, and I particularly get this in the Philippines, is how do we keep things secure? right? Because if you're rolling out, say, call center agents working from home,
Right.
those are potential attack vectors and therefore needs more security. And then the last one is, how do you do that with consistent user or customer experience? Ourselves, we had to reinvent how we do business with our customers and our partners. And so at Cisco, we really had to learn how to, eat our own dog food, if I can use that expression. Very early on, we noticed that this was going to be global and it wasn't going to go away anytime soon. So we already put in policies and adopted technology really early on. And then last, I sort of hinted it before, how do we see digital transformation take shape in the next couple of years? Customer interaction has changed forever. That's number one. Secondly, e-payments absolutely on the rise, and we'll probably see a couple of new entrants in that area. And I think, what pertains to Cisco, regardless of what that future brings, it will be about connecting people to things or applications. We just have to make sure that that happens seamlessly, happens secure, and happens consistently.
Danny, you mentioned, off air that there has been differing rates of adoption when we talk about differing countries and landscapes in terms of digitization, especially in banking. We all want more digital transactions. But the thing is, in the Philippines, it's been highlighted as one of the laggards when it comes to digital banking. What were the key, bottlenecks? What are the stress points that you can highlight compared to the best practices that we've seen in other countries in the region? And have these pain points been addressed, so to speak, during this pandemic? Is there an accelerating shift towards now moving and catching up with the rest of the region?
There is, and I wouldn't necessarily say catching up. There are other countries that are, slower to adopt digital transformation. I brought up the example of Thailand earlier. What COVID-19 really has done is validate that adoption is possible, right? We had companies be hesitant, do we need this? Everything's working fine. So the pandemic really has confirmed that it is possible. I would say the number one stumbling block for most countries in a very regulated industry such as banking/e-banking is the regulatory framework, right? And that is something that needs to be put in place. And it's, frankly speaking, something that's beyond all of our control. What we can do, however, one of the things to be compliant with whatever framework is being put in place is security. And so a lot of the things that we roll out have security first in mind in terms of rolling that out. So the example I gave you of a mobile ATM, how do we make sure that connection between that mobile ATM towards the data center happens in a secure fashion and in a consistent fashion so that it isn't spotty in terms of customer experience. So security first, regulatory framework absolutely required.
And just moving on from that point and jumping off of that point, you mentioned, IT security and the risks of cybersecurity. That has already been a huge pain point even before the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a huge amount of capex for these banks to even make sure that their normal daily transactions are free of these risks. Right now, the risks are higher than ever, particularly with banking employees working from home. How can this be mitigated? And did we have, not just the know-how, but the tools in place? Is this the technology in place to address these over risks, let's say, risks above and beyond the normal banking risks that we have already faced?
I think the technology was there. It just wasn't built to scale to have 80 or 100% of your employees working from home. And something that a lot of people tend to gloss over is when you're talking about digital transformation, people tend to think front of the house, customer facing, but very often forget back of the house, where your employees are your internal customers. So we've always had home working, right? That isn't new. What is new is to do it at a scale that we're doing it where 80 to 100% of people are working at home. And that brings a few challenges, right? First of all, you need reliable connectivity, and obviously the likes of Pldt bring that to the market. But secondly is, how do you make sure that all of these endpoints, right, hundreds if not thousands of people working from home are working in a secure way? That's where technologies such as secure SD-WAN with zero-touch provisioning and what we like to call a zero-trust security approach, that makes all the difference. Zero trust, really in a nutshell, is nothing is supposed to happen unless you allow it. And that's very different from a traditional security approach where everything is allowed except if it breaks a rule. So it's really a shift of philosophy, if you will.
Okay, and finally, last question before I let you go. What is the near-term future, at least, going to be looking like now? Right now, as you mentioned, 70%, 80% are working from home. We have readjusted the ways we purchase things via our mobile phones. But is this way of banking and technology and how these are intertwined really sustainable in the long term? Or is this more a temporary band-aid solution that we need to have once in a while when alternative solutions are needed? What is the future going to be looking like? Will it be more hybrid? Will it be completely digitized? As you mentioned, will physical branches just be disappearing and everyone moving into the cashless society?
Well, it is not a temporary thing. That's the part of your question I can answer right away. I hope that we don't get a global pandemic every year, but there are such things as natural disasters, and I don't have to tell you in the Philippines what that means. Right. That occur much more frequently, and therefore the need for that digital branch to be available is absolutely there, and it's not going to go away. Now, the pace at which this happens and whether it's going to go to a full-blown 100% digital branch, I think that really depends on how fast countries can adopt that regulatory framework. But also, it is a cultural thing. And it will take longer in certain countries. You think, you use the example Singapore. Contactless payments here are it's daily bread, right? I don't know anything else. That may be less so thinking about Thailand and or the Philippines. So the rate at which people are going to adopt to it really comes down to networking, right? But also the availability and the prevalence of things like social networks and mobile phones that are capable of doing that. I see a future where everybody has a smartphone and everybody is on a social network, regardless which one it is. And I really see these guys, enter as new entrants into what's going to be a very burgeoning e-payments, contactless payments world.
Okay, so regulatory frameworks, culture needs to play an issue here, but we cannot avoid the future that is already actually here today. Thank you so much for those insights, Danny Smolders.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for those insights. I'd also like to hear once again from Mr. Jojo Hendrano of PLDT Enterprise.
Thank you, Danny. I hope we've been able to provide our viewers sufficient insight into e-banking. We're proud to get the support and the pleasure in collaborating with our customers. Thank you, Sir Hans. And with our partners, thank you, Danny Smolders. For most institutions, systems were already in place, but no one could have predicted the digital scale needed to support the new normal. It will be imperative for such collaboration to continue between the industry and with service and technology providers, and we're committed to make this industry succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jojo Hendrano, for those insights. Now, up next, we have e-commerce. Evidently, we have seen how e-commerce has evolved in the country in just a couple of months. We are now accustomed to online groceries, food deliveries, and take-home food kits from restaurants, even the sudden rise of online food communities. How is the Philippines already gearing up for the future of e-commerce and e-payments? Well, let's hear it from PLDT Enterprises Vice President and Head of ICT Business Solutions, Mr. Nico Alcoseba.
Good afternoon to everyone, and I hope you are all keeping safe. I'm really excited to open this topic because e-commerce has been elevated into everyone's consciousness. Some willingly, others not by choice. And I do hope in the next 10 minutes, we somehow provide you with new insights and concrete takeaways as we embark in this e-commerce journey together. Allow me to begin with this thought. Anything that changes values changes behavior. And social scientists say that true lasting change only happens when our own innate human behaviors are altered. It took a pandemic to make it happen, but indeed, our values and priorities have been irreversibly reshaped. Consumption behavior has also changed in tandem, and e-commerce is at the front and center of this social shift, not only helping us bring some sense of normalcy to daily life, but more importantly, accelerating the entire ecosystem that enables and supports it. This has created new jobs where others were lost, established new businesses when others had shuttered, rebuilt hope where there was uncertainty and distress. This massive flight to online has manifested in many facets of the e-commerce ecosystem, and these exponential growth numbers we see in consumer adoption show how our own personal transformations into a digital lifestyle have rapidly reached scale in such a condensed period of time. In fact, the latest statistics from global data show that Philippine e-commerce transactions will grow to roughly 1.4% of GDP from 1.1% a year ago. This translates to more than $5 billion in e-commerce value by 2021. Extending this to 2025, a Google study sees this figure ballooning to 12 billion. Clearly, this is behavior that is here to stay. The challenge now for many businesses is how to manage this shift to an online operation from mainly an in-store model, or from being largely brick and mortar to optimally bricks and clicks. Many of the larger retailers, as well as platforms born in e-commerce, successfully navigated this journey, having the benefit of past experience and constant iteration over time. It is our intent in the following slides to help other businesses who wish to attain the same level of success by imparting some key characteristics of a winning digital experience, as well as the enabling technologies that can bring these to life in your own organizations. First, the first characteristic is that the experience has to be easy. Of course, this has many aspects, delving into user experience, such as the speed and responsiveness of the website and or application, as well as the ease of navigation within the platform, not to mention the actual content that should be understandable and relatable to your audience. But beyond this, in our current environment where customers will get in touch with you through multiple digital channels, it's crucial to have your website, social media accounts, application, and even hotline unified so that your customer has the same experience regardless of where they choose to engage with you. This is achieved by shifting from a multi-channel approach to an omni-channel system, where the interaction history with the same customer across the different channels is tracked within the bounds of the Data Privacy Act, thereby achieving a single customer view and a personalized experience, which today is what they call a hygiene factor, something that's very basic or even taken for granted, but whose absence has a huge impact on customer satisfaction. The second characteristic is that the experience has to be immediate. A manual approach to consummate a purchase or having to get back to customers on inventory availability and delivery lead times in today's on-demand economy will result in customer fallout and opportunity loss. Customers today expect to complete the transaction end-to-end quickly and conveniently. And this means a company must tie up all ends. Front end at the website or application through payment options, back end by an accounting system and inventory system, and at the far end with integration with delivery and logistics, whether your own or your partners. Third, the experience has to be always on. The brick and mortar concept of store hours, opening times, and closing times simply do not exist in the realm of bricks and clicks. For the online consumer, there is only one paradigm of time: my time. Customers expect to be served when and where they choose, and so system uptime is an obvious must. And this business continuity is critical for both the back-end infrastructure, which supports the automation and integration that makes the experience easy and immediate, as well as the network connectivity that enables your customer to access your digital assets. Last, and possibly the most reputationally important characteristic, the experience has to be secure. It's all about trust and reputation. With the spike in usage of online platforms, there has definitely been a spike in cybercriminal activity. In fact, during the first half of the year, our EPLDT Security Operations Center detected and mitigated between 3 times more to 15 times more cyber threats, depending on the type of attack, versus the same period last year. Hand in glove to this would be data privacy considerations, since there can be no security without privacy and vice versa. Note though, the common misconception is that cyber attacks only happen to the larger companies who have more data. But global trends have clearly shown that cyber criminals target everyone across the spectrum. It's therefore not a matter of if, but when. Now that we've seen the different characteristics of a winning digital experience, allow us to share the solutions that make it happen. In order to enable an easy experience, there's PLDT Enterprise Contact Center as a Service, which provides omni-channel contact center solutions. Adjacent to this, it would be the Salesforce Customer Relationship Management System, which will enable integration of various customer touchpoints into a single customer view. In order to enable immediacy, we have payment solutions such as PayMaya, which have both online and in-store options. We also have enterprise resource planning practices based on SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and our newest offering for SMEs, simply ERP, in order to tie up your back-end and far-end. In order to be always on, we have Vitro data centers, which have remained 100% up throughout this pandemic and are designed and operated to withstand any disaster, whether natural or man-made. We also have our Managed Operations Center services, whereby we proactively monitor the performance of your infrastructure and alert you of any potential problem that may result in system downtime. Lastly, in order to be secure, we have a whole suite of EPLDT cybersecurity services. We can start with the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, where we crawl your network, search for vulnerabilities, and recommend mitigating measures. We also have a practice around data privacy consulting in order to ensure your compliance to the provisions of RA 10173 or the Data Privacy Act. And lastly, we have our Security Operations Center services, where we monitor any potential cyber attack into your network and mitigate it before it does any damage. Putting all these solutions together to make it work for your own operation can seem complicated. At PLDT Enterprise, we aim to make a positive impact on every single business and simplify the complexities of technology to enable our clients to succeed in today's hyper-changing marketplace. And we hope this session has piqued your curiosity to imagine new possibilities with us. We look forward to partnering with you as you continue in your e-commerce journey and beyond. Thank you for your time and attention, and a pleasant afternoon to everyone. At this point, I would like to introduce Mr. Guilherme de Mora Porto, Operations Director for Food Panda Philippines, to tell us more about the future of e-commerce in the country.
Food Panda is currently a food delivery business as the core. We're currently supposed to be the biggest player, not only in the Philippines, but in the APAC region, the fastest, with the most volume of options, and with the best experience possible. Currently, we're a food delivery business, but in the future, we're headed to having our kitchens, having our brands, and having also other deliveries. Food Panda is a business that is supposed to be on the street. The food is not going to be prepared itself, and the food's not going to be delivered alone. We're a marketplace, so we needed a lot of players and a lot of people involved in this industry to make it happen. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we had to adapt. We had to understand how to provide the best service for our riders and vendors and restaurants. Each city had a different regulation for the food business to be operated. We had to learn how to deal with the blockages and the riders to keep delivering and the vendors to keep their restaurants open. For a rider to start working, in the end, he needs to have a motorcycle or a bicycle. He needs to have data in his cell phone. He needs to have access to connect. For the future, with the volume of city expansions that we're expecting, with the volume of new verticals that we're supposed to launch, and more vendors and riders onboarding on a daily basis, we need to provide them the conditions for it to happen. PLDT is going to be key for us to keep providing conditions and access for those involved parties to keep working.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nico Alcoseba and Mr. Deporto, for your insights. It does indeed look like exciting things are coming discontinuously on the rice sector. Now, our next guest speaker has held various roles in Credit Suisse, both in Singapore and in London. Most recently, he has served as the group's vice president and fixed income strategist over in Singapore. Now, here to share his insights on how consumer behavior has changed because of the crisis, as well as some of the challenges that his team has encountered this year, being one of the biggest players in e-commerce here in Southeast Asia. Let's please welcome the Associate Director of Shoppie Philippines, Mr. Martin Yu. Hi, Martin, and welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
Now, Martin, everyone knows what Shoppie is. It's a huge brand and it's one of the most famous ones during the pandemic. It's especially boomed in this period. Tell us more about your experience and how it has been for you guys thus far.
Sure. I'll give a brief background just in case people are not as familiar. So Shoppie is the leading e-commerce platform in Southeast Asia and Taiwan. We actually launched in 2015 and tailored our platform for the region, providing customers with an easy, secure, and fast online shopping experience through strong payments and fulfillment support. Now, COVID-19 pandemic has really brought around large-scale social and behavioral changes, and changes have motivated consumers to become online first when it comes to meeting their everyday needs, while brands and sellers go online as well to search for growth. So what happened when COVID hit? Actually, the pandemic further propelled the adoption of e-commerce in the country. The demography of online shoppers is becoming more diverse as more Filipinos turn to e-commerce for the added convenience and access to essential needs. So Shoppie has also observed a widening appeal of online shopping, with older consumers and buyers in cities around the capital shopping more actively on the platform. As such, we've taken quite a few initiatives to innovate our platform to build on existing efforts to elevate the online shopping experience of our shoppers. For example, we curated several, for the onset of the pandemic, we introduced the 5/5 Shoppie Mart sale, due to the increasing demand for personal and household essentials. And as fashion became a popular category in the Philippines, we also launched the 8/8 fashion sale, whereby shoppers were able to enjoy exclusive discounts and promotions. Actually, currently, we're ongoing with the 9/9 Super Shopping Day, our annual signature shopping campaign, and several exciting promos, deals, and prizes in all 7 Shoppie markets. So the 9/9 Super Shopping Day this year takes on greater significance as communities step up their recovery efforts and adapt to the new normal. Shoppie outlines 3 commitments. It wants to provide a super ecosystem, supercharge recovery for sellers and brands, and deliver a super collection of entertainment and deals. So further, e-commerce has evolved into something more than just a way to shop. It's become a place where people have come together to interact, read content, and connect with others. Shoppie has seen greater use of its in-app engagement features, such as Shoppie Live, and in the past few months, as Filipinos seek to stay connected more online. Likewise, several brands and sellers took the opportunity to venture online to grow their business and accelerate their digitalization efforts and future-proof their operations. To aid this movement, Shoppie actually introduced an array of support initiatives to help sellers, like the 200 million peso seller support package and the seller loan program with BillEase to help SMEs and sellers tied through this period. Further, Shoppie ramped up Shoppie University classes, a program we first introduced in 2017 to share lessons to help sellers boost their sales on the platform. So we've been very happy to be part of what's been growing in this space.
Martin, you mentioned here that e-commerce has been on the rise. Shoppie has managed to ride that wave even before this pandemic and lockdown came. But Shoppie also has a lot of products that are, let's say, considered non-essential in this period where people have, tighter consumer pockets. They're much pickier in terms of their buying habits. But at the same time, there's still, as you mentioned, an increase in people wanting to buy these things, especially with physical malls now shut down. How are you navigating this? What are the new trends that you are seeing in terms of the buying behavior, especially here in the Philippines?
So I want to contrast and compare against the other buyers in the region. Actually, again, there's been a big shift to e-commerce, and in the past months, we've seen a big surge in in people looking for health and fashion products. And of course, at the same time, there's this greater adoption for digital payments across the region. But in the Philippines in particular, aside from just looking for these health and fashion products, there's a big demand for engagement and entertainment while they're shopping online, which is a bit different to the other markets. So Shoppie's actually continued to partner with the likes of Wawawin Primetime to offer shoppers greater fun and entertainment while they shop online. And there's a lot of usage in our in-app engagement features such as Shoppie Live, and that's really had quite a different impact to shoppers.
Now that we are 5 months into the lockdown, have you seen a, let's say, normalization in terms of, it was very difficult to get our hands on any item at the beginning due to logistics issues, due to supply chain issues. A lot of your products come from abroad as well. Now, what is your solution here for a long-term sustainable e-commerce platform where everything is engaged? You had mentioned already, the payment platforms have significantly improved, but there's still the question on logistics, on safety, on being able to have products that are safe and meet those safety protocols. How are you able to make sure that this all runs very smoothly? And have you been able to navigate these waters already?
So thankfully, we've been working with a lot of partners, and really they've taken this together with our own logistics efforts, and we've grown it remarkably well. I think in the initial stages, there were a lot of us working with the government to understand the rules but since then, we've been able to scale up our operations, and we continue to scale it up as demand actually continues to rise, particularly as we head into Q4 of this year. And that's something we expect to continue, and that's us working with the different riders, with the different organizations. We've also set up, as digital payments grows, alternative methods of payment outside of what's the norm.
How has your engagement with the customer changed? You mentioned that it's more than just a platform where you can buy things, right? You mentioned that this is also a place where there's interaction, you can give reviews, you can make products better, and you can set trends, for example. How have you made that more personal in this period where things are so isolated?
So actually, it's for us enhancing the features that already existed. And on one side, you highlighted giving reviews, and that's something we continue to encourage buyers to do because we want to let them know, or we want other shoppers to know as well whether or not they're getting the good products. At the same time, there's so much more focus on engagement and social interaction. So Shoppie Live, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of sellers are actually taking advantage because now they have a direct line to their consumers. They're able to talk about their products and basically get face-to-face interaction, if you can say it that way, for people to describe their products and really sell it directly to their consumers, and that's growing even more every day.
Thank you, Martin. Now, at this point, I do want to reintroduce to our stream here Mr. Nico Alcoseba. Nico, are you there? Yes, to join in this conversation, because in your talk just a few minutes earlier, you had highlighted the fact that despite, everyone's excited about e-commerce, everyone wants this shift to digital buying, but not everyone, especially here in the Philippines, MSMEs, not everyone can afford a platform, not everyone can invest in all of this technology. What is the big bottleneck here, and what's your plan to address this?
Thank you for that question, Danny. And I just wanted to comment, Martin, so it's really more fun in the Philippines because only in the Philippines do we see engagement in your app. But that being said, well, Danny, it's a very relevant question today because as we have seen, this pandemic has really affected especially small businesses. And the shift to digital is not a simple one. It's very complex. But if we look at the more successful digital platforms, such as Shoppie, on a global and regional perspective, it really has 4 characteristics. The platform has to be easy to use. It has to have an immediate experience. It has to be always on. And it has to be secure. The challenge, I think, for MSMEs is that there's this perception that in order to achieve these characteristics, it's expensive and it's complicated. And I think that's where PLDT Enterprise, together with ePLDT, can come in to understand the requirements of our market segments, because there are different solutions depending on the scale of your operation. So maybe to give you an example, just recently, normally enterprise resource planning systems, or ERPs, which are critical to automating inventory and to automating processes, which is very important in an e-commerce operation, they used to be quite expensive. But we partnered with one of the global pace-setting brands to come up with a product called Simple ERP. It's at a price point that's at 10,000 pesos per month, and it allows MSMEs to automate their backend, which is the first step toward an online operation.
Okay.
A second way we are helping SMEs is through our Beyond Fiber program. So I hope you've seen the ads, but for Beyond Fiber, what we hope to do is provide not just connectivity, which is really the baseline and the foundation of any online operation, but the higher value-added services as well that are needed. So for example, we also provide the managed services to make sure that their network is up before it even has any trouble. We also have security services because, as we've seen from our ePLDT Security Operations Center, cyber attacks have actually grown between 3 times to 15 times, depending on the type of cyber attack. So as usage has spiked online, then cyber criminals have also hiked up their activity, and no one is spared. MSMEs may think that they are not targets, but everyone is a target. So what we've done is we've tried to democratize our Security Operations Center, our Endpoint Advanced Security, and our different services that enable SMEs to secure their operation as they go online.
And this is,
through those,
yes, go ahead, Nico.
so through these initiatives, what we tell our clients though is that it's not one size fits all. So what we want to do is really work with them to see what their needs are, and they don't need to start with the whole bells and whistles. We can begin with what's basic, what's important, what's most essential, and what can make the most positive impact on their business. So we simplify the complex for them so they can just focus on engaging their customers and growing their business.
Okay, so it's actually something that's quite feasible now, that perhaps before the pandemic might have been a more expensive venture to be dealt with. Martin, I just want to ask, in terms of Shoppie, now there's going to be increasing competition, and Nico was pointing out about the MSMEs needing much more help perhaps than the bigger guns. Is there not this risk that the bigger players will swallow, the market share and become the more dominant players here? How do you protect the small and medium-sized players in a platform like Shoppie?
No, so I think in situations like this, competition is actually something that will help, and a lot of times it's us helping MSMEs get that right exposure, because it's people coming from different backgrounds who are now given this, if I may say, a level playing field to show off their goods, and that's something we're very proud of in Shoppie, that we do quite strongly. And do we think it's already starting to get to the point where it's closing off the industry? I think actually that e-commerce is still in very early stages. The industry is quite young, I might say, for the Philippines, and the runway is actually pretty high. So the more people participate, it actually just grows the market as a whole.
Okay, so more competition, actually, the better also for consumers. And finally, Nico, before I let you guys go, I'm really curious about the PLDT Enterprise Solutions when it comes to far-flung areas, right? So when you talk about Metro Manila and even Shoppie and logistics, it's fairly easy to get a product in one day. I can order it and get it in a day. But when you talk about providing enterprise solutions to MSMEs in other provincial areas where their bread and butter was really, direct customers, and really engaging with their clients, what's the solution there?
Well, thank you for that. I think one of the advantages that PLDT has is that it's an integrated telco, that it can serve our customers with different types of solutions depending on where they are and what they need. So for the far-flung areas that do not have fixed connectivity, we do have our smart wireless connectivity. And in fact, we are expanding our LTE network to ensure that the internet in more far-flung areas can accommodate the boom in e-commerce and can accommodate new buying behaviors of our customers, regardless of where they are.
Martin, have you found difficulty in addressing this particular issue, servicing clients and their needs in other areas of the country?
No, that's definitely something we need, and we're very, very, very happy to hear this as initiatives from PLDT. Basically, I think internet speed is one of our key blockers infrastructurally, and we're very happy to be supporting any of that.
Okay, so thank you for that. I think more collaboration is definitely needed here. It's a huge Pandora's box that must be opened, and this is the perfect opportunity to be finding those opportunities and harnessing on technology and also the new boom in e-commerce. Thank you so much for those insights, Martin Yu of Shoppie, and of course, Nicole Coseba from PLDT. Moving on now, let us now learn more about how our local government transformed by adapting to new ways of working and utilizing solutions available today. Here to share with us solutions that ensure operational efficiency in the public sector, as well as key trends that can be applied in this particular sector, please welcome on the screen Vice President and Head of Enterprise Digital Solutions, Mr. John Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of PLDT Enterprise, it is my pleasure to join you all online to talk about e-government by taking a look at practical digital solutions offered to government agencies and local government units today. PLDT, as a telco and ICT provider, have always been an active participant, advocate, and contributor to government initiatives in the development and implementation of core digital projects. With the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacting and disrupting how traditional public services are being delivered, the need for digital transformation is now more important than ever. Based on an article from Deloitte, the potential impact of this crisis includes increased demand for services with rising citizen expectations around delivery of virtual services and continued move towards digital to enable government services of the future. Workforce planning and the need to test the resilience of working virtually to provide longer-term potential for reshaping the government workforce. And lastly, disrupted sectors looking to government to provide adaptive and dynamic regulatory models that shall provide longer-term opportunity to reinvent the future of regulation. With the innovative technology that helps government agencies across health, education, public welfare services, critical infrastructure, public safety and justice, tax, finance, and revenue, digital services enhances how government agencies serves institutions, businesses, people, and communities. It is also an opportune time to accelerate the government's mandate signed into law under RA 11032, or Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, to connect government to government, government to business, and government to citizens. These past several months alone, PLDT has worked with and continued to engage government agencies on how these services can be delivered more effectively. We have successfully deployed solutions to support critical services like e-government applications and kiosks, online payment gateways, citizen ID and community applications, command center solutions, contact center systems, CCTV surveillance solutions, traffic management, temperature sensors, smart Wi-Fi on certain public centers, work-from-home solutions, emergency 911 dispatch systems, as well as cybersecurity and data privacy services. These are digital platforms and tools that provides access to pertinent government services and enable emergency contact and response. This allows for collaboration, operational efficiency, service availability, and security. For e-government services, our affiliate, Multisys, has developed applications and automated services like real property tax, business permit and licensing systems, public market information systems, motorized tricycle operation systems, civil registry systems, and senior citizen management systems. These systems can be accessed using digital devices anytime, anywhere, with hotline, email, and chat support systems that support their constituents. Required payment for certain services can also be achieved using online payment gateways, kiosks, or accredited payment centers. Solution that is widely used is the Citizen ID and Community app. Powered by PayMaya, constituents are given a citizen ID that serves as identification and empower individuals to engage in community affairs, provide feedback, participate in surveys, report emergencies, download and submit forms, and also pay services online. The Citizen ID and Community app also serves as a disbursement facility for allowances, payroll, and also financial assistance for their constituents. PLDT has been active in building LGU command centers. These command centers are mainly focused on infrastructure monitoring, traffic management, and emergency and response dispatch. These command centers are connected to various agencies like fire, health, and police departments to ensure rapid response to requests coming through the emergency 911 contact center system. First responders are also enabled with a smart SOS dispatch mobile service so that relevant information are provided and sent in real time for immediate deployment. Lastly, with the advent of 5G and IoT, local government units can expect more innovative solutions that can be deployed to better serve its constituents. At its very core, 5G and IoT brings together the physical, the digital, and biological worlds through connectivity, data, automation, and humanized interfaces. 5G and IoT are essential elements in building smart cities. Smart cities that enhance accessibility to government services and opportunity to make the Filipino lives even better. Our recent launch of 5G helps potential opportunities for a better future. The International Telecommunications Union defines three use cases scenario for 5G systems. It enhances mobile broadband to better accommodate increased data usage, massive machine-to-machine type of communications, which allows more devices to be connected with less power at lower rates, and ultra reliable and low latency communications that will further both safely support both safely critical and mission critical applications. The major outcome of a smart city implementation is to make cities, communities, and delivery of vital services become more business friendly, people centered, and environmentally livable. Smart cities are made up of hyper connected elements that can monitor thousands of IoT sensors, monitoring weather conditions, traffic behavior, flood detection, crime prevention, energy management, waste management, and amongst others, all sending data at the same time. 5G will be needed for future scale, performance, and reliability needs. Once 5G is fully implemented, all these individual use cases will come together and transform the Philippines into a smart and connected nation. That is where the true power of 5G and IoT lies. It isn't just about speed, it's a capability to expand accessibility and opportunity for the majority. For smart city residents, it should translate to a better standard of living and an improved sector experience of public service. And digital technology can make this a reality. At PLDT, EPLDT, and SMART, our strategy is simple: to serve the needs of the Filipino people. First, we've begun laying down infrastructure needed to bring connectivity to our end users. We will continue to increase and leverage on our most expansive fiber optic network, today at a staggering 200,000 plus kilometers, and fortify our partnerships with global technology leaders to be able to strengthen our 5G, IoT, and LTE rollouts. Technology and enablement side, we have built 10 data centers, a local Azure cloud instance, a cybersecurity and analytics practice, and connectivity management to serve the compute, data storage, management of devices to power smart homes, smart cities, smart factories, smart buildings, and more importantly, smart government services. To summarize, PLDT helps reimagine, redefine, and redesign the ways of working, serving, and engaging communities. We are here to enable government services of the future and help enrich the lives of the Filipino people. Now, let's watch as one of our country's most respected leaders endeavored to make smart cities a reality for his constituents.
The missions and visions of the city, of course, Vice Mayor po ako. I'm always in support of the vision and mission of our mayor. Kami naman po ang legislative or lawmaking body, which yung mga policies po ng ating mayor, we legislate to make it into laws at ito po yung ma-implement po niya. However, because of what has happened this year, itong pandemic na COVID-19, medyo lahat po ng mga, o halos lahat po ng naiplano namin for the year 2020 naantala. And of course, yung products ng PLDT has been a big help dahil dito sa ating how we connect with people. Marami kasi mga meeting dyan na face-to-face, hindi na namin pwedeng gawin kasi nagkakaroon ng mass gathering. So what we do it electronically, not anymore face-to-face. And then of course, the challenge there is it's quite a new technology for all of us. Madali yung face-to-face, but however, nasanay ka rin na meron ka parating hawak na dokumento. It is also quite a challenge. Hindi mo hawak yung dokumento electronically, nagagawan din po namin ng paraan yan. Of course, using all those messaging system na nagpapasa kami ng documents with each other. In the City Council, when we meet, we decide on resolutions and ordinances that has helped this administration in coping up with COVID-19. Ang nangyayari kasi ngayon, marami ng mga no contact policy. So what I learned from other city, from other department heads that are income generating in the city, Ang gagawin po natin dyan, yung mga no contact na, using electronic means also, paying whatever for the permits, paying their taxes electronically. Nag-aaralan din ng city government yan. And also sa health department po natin, they're also looking for ways and means to improve ang ating data gathering and ating mga contact tracing. What pandemic has shown us is that the way of the future right now is really electronically and digitally. Makikita naman po talaga natin how you pay transactions right now. In order kami, may babayaran kami, we use those electronic means of payment. Not only way of paying, the way of getting the correct and right information. So as long as the city government has the right social media platform, they can always give the correct and accurate information to our constituents. Sa PLDT, thank you very much for showing the way and making the world smaller for everybody. Mga features na binigay nyo, yung products na inalok nyo sa ating constituents o for the Filipinos per se, ay malaking bagay not only in this pandemic but how we communicate with everybody. And then dito po sa trabaho rin, it had made things easier. If this technology is not available today, napakahirap po para sa amin na gumawa ng desisyon, ng mabilis na desisyon para sa ating mga constituents. Thank you very much, PLDT.
Thank you so much to our distinguished speakers for sharing your plans in building smarter and more connected cities. Now, our next speaker is the Deputy Secretary Level Officer from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Over his extensive career, Mr. Robinson has developed and expanded Australia's relationships with a broad range of countries with a particular focus on the Southeast Asian region. He has served in Australia's embassies in Jakarta, Yangon, and Bangkok, and has held a range of senior positions in Canberra across operational and corporate areas. In 2009, Mr. Robinson was made an Officer of the Order of Australia for service to Australia's international interests through a significant and sustained contribution. Hello, Ambassador, and welcome to the stream.
Hello, Danny, and lovely to see you. Thanks very much for that very fine introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Australian Government, it's a really great pleasure to join you for this segment on e-government and to share some of Australia's experiences. First, I'd really like to congratulate PLDT Enterprises for organising this virtual TechTalk forum. Especially at the moment, living with COVID-19, we're all coping with restrictions, with isolation, and coming to terms with new ways of working. Coming together to share information and knowledge in this type of virtual forum is a really welcome development, and it enables us to continue to engage across all sectors. We just can't allow ourselves to be paralysed by the current crisis, but rather we must look for better, more innovative approaches to respond, to recover, and to build resilience. Governments, of course, are responsible for delivering a wide range of services that support businesses and the broader community. The Australian Government recognises and promotes excellence and innovation in service delivery. The integration of information and communication technology is a cornerstone of our e-government platforms. And Australia fares really well on the world stage. The most recent United Nations e-government development index ranks Australia 4th in the world, but we'd like to do much better than that. So in November 2018, the Australian Government Digital Transformation Agency released a digital transformation strategy for government to help us become one of the top digital governments in the world, even higher than 4th. The strategy sets out 3 priorities that put people and businesses at the very centre of government. First, we want a government that's easier to deal with, that's accessible 24/7. Second, we want a government that's informed by its citizens, that share information with it. Thirdly, we want a government that's fit for the digital age, and that means now. The Australian government created a framework and a set of tools to help online designers and developers build government products and services more easily. The system incorporates digital service standards to achieve the highest usability and, importantly, accessibility for all in order to deliver a consistent user experience. In this digital world, citizens expect digital services from government that keep pace with technology and match the customer experiences and the services offered by industry. Emerging technologies, data and analytics, and artificial intelligence present significant opportunities for governments all around the world. And that is why, through our development program, we're also working here to support the Philippine government's digitalization agenda. Of course, there are significant challenges in the Philippines with infrastructure, much needed work to be done on regulatory frameworks, and to ensure cybersecurity, which is a major concern for all of us. But by harnessing the opportunities of digital technology within a robust framework, the Australian government's e-experience demonstrates that government can indeed deliver better outcomes for the public and to do so more efficiently and effectively. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for that inspiring message. And we really hope that the Philippines can emulate the Australian example, and hoping for you guys, or rooting for you guys to be in the top 3. You guys are in top 4. That's really good already. Now, just a quick question. When you talk about the Philippines, you've already pointed out some considerations here: infrastructure, cybersecurity, regulation being the most important. But tell us, given our situation right now, we are an archipelago. We have had difficulties also in upskilling and in having the same path that you have. You can see this in other sectors that we've already featured earlier in the talk, like e-banking, for example. What are the most important considerations here when we talk about e-government services in particular?
So I think it's the commitment to invest in the capability and to really develop new and innovative solutions to the problem. If government doesn't invest and keep pace with the technology, and given what's happened over the last 5 months, you've seen just how fast the world's turned to digital platforms. If government doesn't invest in a major capability across government, then I think there's real issues that will befall the government. So I think it needs to have a real capability enhancement that lifts the capability of the government systems so that it's right across government. Because when I look at what Australia's done, it's developed systems across all departments and agencies on one platform, trying to get all the agencies working on one digital platform that enables government to provide services to the Australian public and gives them confidence that they can have easier access and indeed trust the system on which they're operating.
Okay, so much more a broader, unified framework needs to be done, and also dedication to fund this sort of approach. Ambassador, just to nuance this a bit and give more beef, let's say, on the Australian example. For sure, this has been in the works for decades already, this strategy in terms of e-government in Australia. But how have the daily lives really changed?
So I think for Australians, their lives have been turned upside down by the digital platforms that now are on offer. And essentially, we've got millions of Australians who can now securely access a range of government services online every day, 24/7. And this really impacts me too, because I use them as well. Sitting up here in Manila, I reach into our government to do a whole range of things. For example, we've got a digital identity system which verifies and authenticates users and increases security, privacy, and enables data exchange. We've got a thing called MyGov, which provides me, sitting here in Manila, with access to 11 government services with one single log-on. We've got a thing called MyTax, which enables me to do my tax return and to lodge it online instantaneously. We've also got a system called My Health Record, which enables citizens to securely share their key health information about medical conditions, about treatments, and about medicines, and share that with their healthcare providers. So that's really significant. Another example in the healthcare sphere, which is highly relevant given what's happening now in the Philippines, is that more than 97% of health and aged care insurance claims are submitted digitally. And that equates to about 610 million payment transactions a year, which equals over 50 billion Australian dollars going between businesses and the government each year. So it's quite extraordinary.
Ambassador, you seem so well prepared already for anything. And can you say that this COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented, and anywhere in the world, whether you're in the Philippines or Australia, everyone has been caught off guard. But can you say that it has changed in any way? The ways in which e-government is operating in Australia, or can you say that it's been completely prepared for something like this to happen? Are there any different innovations or disruptions that are now going on?
Danny, I wish I could say that the government was completely prepared, but this was such an extraordinary circumstance that I don't think any government was prepared for this sort of pandemic. So where we are now is everybody's scrambling to do more in a shorter space of time. And even in Australia, where we had our digital strategy that reached out to 2025, now that's all got to be accelerated. Because what's happened in the last 6 months is that people's expectations of the digital services that they can receive, and you've only seen that with people buying things online, those expectations have increased enormously. And so that's what I was saying before, that government needs to match private industry in terms of what private industry has delivered over the last 5 months. And so if government doesn't keep pace, there'll be enormous dissatisfaction with the population. So the onus is now on government to do more and to do it faster, because we've changed forever. And what I was saying before is digitalization is now. It's not in 5 years. We need it now.
Okay, so even with all of these systems in place, there's still an accelerated need for more efforts there all over the globe.
I think
Ambassador, go ahead, sir.
Yes, I think that's right, Danny. So even in Australia, we're trying to get all of our departments and agencies linked into one major system on one platform that's even more effective than what we've got now. Because I think, as everyone started to digitalize, we've done it, all countries pretty much, in a bit of a piecemeal fashion. And what we're now trying to do is to bring it together effectively and efficiently, but to give people confidence that when the government has their information and exchanges details with them, they have confidence that that system is secure. And that's where the cyber security part of the equation also comes into the development of digitalization platforms.
Ambassador, you, of course, are here in the Philippines. How involved are you in the Philippine government's digitalization agenda? What is the low-hanging fruit here? What are your immediate plans to assist, especially in this period?
So we've been involved in the Philippines now since 2008, in particular with DepEd. And so we've been doing lots in terms of the unified information system that DepEd has, and that's been really, really good. So we've been working effectively with DepEd for many years. We've also been working to improve teachers' ICT skills, and of course that's been very, very valuable too. We've got a program here called Coalitions for Change, and that works with the Asia Foundation, and we've supported the passage of the free internet access in public places for a whole range of different municipalities and areas around the country. And that covers government offices, it covers schools, government hospitals, and the like, transportation terminals as well. So it's been lovely to see that. And of course, we've now helped get free Wi-Fi out to 4,600 different locations around the country. We're also working here with the United Nations and the World Bank to be able to help them deliver global standard ICT technologies and technical assistance to the Philippines government. I've also engaged with the Department of ICT, and we're looking at how do we protect systems through cybersecurity issues as well. And also in the disaster relief area, we've been working with the Office of Civil Defence for many years now to improve their capability. So all in all, it's quite a comprehensive program of engagement, also including the Department of Social Welfare and Development, I should add too. So I'm really pleased with where we're positioned to help the Philippines based upon Australia's experience.
Well, we're definitely hoping to reap some of the benefits of these projects. And at this point, Ambassador, I'd like to invite back in our stream Mr. John Gonzalez to join us in our conversation. Hi, John. Welcome back. I just wanted to jump off on Ambassador's keynote earlier on, where he said that a focus needs to be done on not just smaller projects here, but a unified strategy for e-government, right? So a very broad-based strategy where one login can access so many different services. Sir, is this something that is feasible here in the Philippines, given that a lot of LGUs operate independently?
Most definitely, Danny. But first of all, I'd like to thank again our ambassador for the insights that you have shared with us. It is truly amazing, and the achievements that you've done are something that a lot of countries would like to emulate and also aspire for, including the Philippines. Now, some of the insights that our ambassador shared was basically, one is providing access to government service 24/7, any time of the week, right? And then providing a feedback mechanism so that sentiments of the population or the citizenry can be can be sent to the government for them to be able to consider what it is that they need to provide their citizens with, right? And then lastly, providing a single portal for all of the government services. And my answer to that really is yes, those are the things that we ourselves want to aspire for. Now, while we do work with a lot of the major government agencies like DOH, DepEd, and most especially DICT, a lot of these services are distributed down the line to the local government units. And not only do we work with the major agencies, but we also definitely need to create those kinds of systems for the local government to distribute those services and then provide those services to the population at hand.
Sir John, can you also, for our viewers, but also just for a dialogue with Ambassador, SMART and PLDT have started with these so-called smart cities, putting 5G in targeted areas. You started in Clark and central business districts and the biggest universities. What is your strategy here? How is it linked to the government's strategy when it comes to e-government? Is that tied in any way? And then later on, I want to ask Ambassador's opinion on is this sort of strategy localized and then bringing in the bigger nation strategy the way to go?
Well, there's actually an influx of new solutions coming in that are sensor-based or what we call IoT-based that basically helps, manage transportation, monitor waste management, look into the traffic situation and flood detection, et cetera. And a lot of those will require a lot of sensors. Now, the value of 5G is being able to provide that ability to aggregate all of those data and consolidate it, and then do make sense out of it, and then provide better value in service to our citizens today.
Ambassador, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's nailed it, because what we're seeking to do is, I suppose, is every country's got to devise a system that meets its own particular needs. And if it means that you start with particular localities or you start with particular departments, but then you can link all of those together to make the whole, then that makes it all possible. Because I know the size of the Philippines, it's such an extraordinary enterprise. In Australia, we've got a population of 26, 27 million. The population here of the Philippines coming up to 110 million. My goodness, the scale is just so enormous. So therefore, each country develops its own approach, as long as the ultimate objective is to bring it all together as one and provide services that meet the needs of both citizens individually, but also businesses, and that they've got the confidence in the systems they use. I think that's fine.
Sir John, Ambassador gave some specific examples of the tools that they have over in Australia, from everything from 24/7 healthcare to checking any portal at any time of the day. What do we already have? What are some use cases that your team has already been doing, or that we can at least anticipate in the near future?
Well, again, what's available right now and what we have implemented in recent memories, basically a lot of things with regards to traffic management, a lot of things in terms of creating command centers for crime prevention. That means we're putting in a lot of smart cameras all over the place to be able to determine any incidents that may need immediate actions today. We've created actually systems that creates ease of doing business between the population and then also with the government. That means being able to digitally pay your taxes, request for permits and a lot of those things. But it's an evolving process, and that's why it's very important for us to look into the promise of smart cities.
Sir John, just before I let you gentlemen go, just a very quick question on the packages of PLDT. It's not necessarily a standardized package, that you can see, because you're going to have very, very different problems for different local government units. How can you manage such a broad range of services and tools that are needed? Ambassador had pointed out we need some level of streamlining here, but at the same time, as a service provider, you need to be able to target specific pain points.
So a priority for one city may differ from another. Like a city might have a lot of issue with regards to criminality, but then again, there's another city who has an issue with regards to doing, having an environment to do easier doing business, right? And then another city that has an issue with environment. So we need to have those conversations, and from those conversations, we would be able to identify which specific solution can really address those pressing needs or problems. So it really depends. Again, it's important that the local government understands really the need, and finds ways to be able to address and solve those problems.
And these needs are, of course, accelerated during this period, and we do need the mentorship of countries like Australia with already best case scenarios. Thank you so much. Of course, that was Ambassador Stephen Robinson and Mr. John Gonzalez for your insights today. Okay, and for our final featured e-industry, let's take a closer look at what is happening in e-healthcare.
Healthcare has increasingly become a topic of contention in the past couple of months. I'm sure we all share the same curiosity as to how we are responding as a nation and what the industry has done to improve the quality of their services. And now here to share what lies ahead in the future of healthcare here in the Philippines, please welcome First Vice President and Sales Head of PLDT Enterprise, Mr. Mitch Locsin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to join you all today as we take a look at the emergence of e-health industry in light of the changing healthcare landscape. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly give everyone a snapshot of the sector by looking at the number of healthcare workers and facilities we have in contrast to our country's population of 109 million citizens. Now, let's keep those figures in mind as we dive into today's discussion. Locally, our healthcare system is crippled by many difficulties. Even pre-pandemic, we already had an estimated shortage of 23,000 nurses. COVID aggravated the situation further as 1,800 healthcare workers were infected by the virus and another 50 of them had succumbed to its symptoms. To make matters worse, hospitals across the country are now on full capacity, leaving the national government and various local government units scrambling to launch quarantine and testing facilities nationwide. But this doesn't even scratch the surface. The sector is faced with a shortage of rapid and PCR testing kits, hospital beds, medical equipment like ventilators. Now, I know that these figures might sound scary, but don't get me wrong. I'm not here to frighten anyone. I'm here to challenge this reality. Because of the current situation, many of us are forced to forego vital health routines like lab tests, annual checkups, or even dental consultations. But life has to go on. While we, as a society, have found ways to adapt to the situation, healthcare is simply an aspect of life that we cannot compromise. That is why, in response to the pandemic, the Department of Health, or DOH, mandated the practice of telemedicine before physical visits to a hospital or doctor's clinic for consultation. While at first, many of us saw this as a temporary fix, we realized that this is the way of the future. This inspired us to study the patient journey, allowing us to come up with solutions that enabled our vision of healthcare for all to become a reality in the safest and most efficient way possible. With this, we've identified three focus areas. The first and most basic is the access to e-health services. We wanted to ensure that this digital shift would enable more citizens to enjoy quality healthcare. This starts off with simple online appointment setting and consultation all the way to remote monitoring services. Regardless of where the patient is, he is able to connect with a healthcare provider. It's that simple. Second is the management of e-health or healthcare records via streamlined patient data and digital documentation, ultimately enabling better patient outcomes. And last but not the least is the integration and collaboration of hospital management system for secure and efficient healthcare management. This includes a digital medical database, online payment options, a hospital management system, to name a few. The most immediate of these is the telemedicine services, which is why we at PLDT prioritize these in our e-health roadmap. There are many telemedicine solutions out there in the market right now, but each features a single capability, leaving the patient and doctor to fill in the gaps in between. What we saw was an opportunity for a streamlined patient journey by having all capabilities in a single end-to-end ecosystem. We reviewed a handful of possible partners in the market, both local and international, and decided to collaborate with three of the most capable providers in the market with a vision to fortify these services for our customers and bundling such offers with our Smart GigaHealth plans and PLDT Home. With this, I am proud to share with all of you today our e-health roadmap with patient journey that we at PLDT Enterprise have been working on, which we will be launching this month. First is the most important step of all. It's the first touch point for appointment setting, which can either begin in either a mobile app or a hotline for non-data users. This allows for e-consultation or teleconsultation with your doctor. After being diagnosed, doctors would then provide an e-prescription to e-pharmacies or online boutique drugstores like Mercury Drug, Watson's, Southstar Drug, where patients will be allowed to either pick up or have their medicines delivered. Another possible outcome is e-referral. Should a doctor recommend the further consultation with another doctor or for further testing through the e-laboratory capability. To make it even more efficient and relevant, we're ensured that these offers are fully integrated with HMOs and PhilHealth. We meant it when we said we wanted to streamline all the healthcare needs into one platform. I'm sure many of our viewers are familiar with those trendy automated remote diabetes maintenance devices and heart monitoring hardware solutions. So later this year, we are looking at integrating similar type of remote patient monitoring solutions and devices onto this app that we will be launching, Using AI technology, like I said, we want everything you need to be in one platform. Now, I know you guys might be thinking, who can avail of such systems? Once we go to the market, we will be covering B2C or business to consumer, or in this case, business patient models. We will also be covering business B2D or business to doctor models, and of course, B2B or business to business or hospitals, clinics, and corporations that are required to have healthcare facilities like the BPO industry. Last but not the least, we also intend to bring this even further to our LGUs or healthcare centers. So we reach the barangay level with our e-health solution. The goal, after all, is to make the digital shift as inclusive as possible. We want to make e-health services available to all Filipinos, wherever and whenever they need it, and with whatever digital media they use. Again, this is just the beginning. I look forward to the day when we can finally say that healthcare for all is a reality in the Philippines. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all. And now, to discuss what lies ahead in the local healthcare industry, let's all welcome Metro Pacific Investments Corporation Senior Advisor, Mr. Dan Horan.
This pandemic has affected so many people in dramatically different ways. And I guess one of the key challenges that we've seen is that it highlights the access to care and the difficulties that people have accessing care because of the physical nature of it. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of the affected families around COVID at the moment. Today, moving around the city and getting access to different locations, whether you're a provider of a care or the recipient, it's been incredibly difficult. So the impact on finding a doctor, booking them, paying for them, and having a consultation, it really now needs to be on a virtual basis, given these constraints. Through the booking systems that we've enabled, patients and even myself, you can go and book a test knowing that when you go to that location, number one, it's open, number two, you've got a test, and ultimately then you'll get the results as they come out. Partnering with Pldt Enterprise has been extremely helpful. They bring together technology, innovation, and services. So these include ePLDTs, cloud hosting services, and IT solutions, through to the fast connectivity which is provided to hospitals, clinics, doctors, and of course the patients through things like fiber and 4 and 5G mobile networks. The Pldt team as a group has also got consultants who are well versed in the healthcare vertical to support the solutioning and strategies. So it's a great range of support services to grow and evolve your business. I think you could look at it in three ways in the coming years ahead for health: efficiencies, experience, and innovation. Digital services will drive efficiencies and change the way that people access services, improving the access and processes behind it between health providers, the customer, and insurance companies, resulting in streamlined access to care and cost savings. The second, on the experience side of things, digital technologies will fundamentally change the customer experience, allowing for the integration of ecosystem experiences and journeys rather than isolated functions. And finally, through innovations like AI, machine learning, remote diagnostic services, the impact on patients and the healthcare workers alike will be dramatic. Basically, on the self-diagnostic side of things, it can really assess the risk profile on a patient. So many solutions will look at symptoms, but as you may know, if you have chronic diseases and some other things as pre-existing issues as a person, these can dramatically influence the potential outcome if you do come in contact with COVID on your success rates. So the AI tools in the background effectively score you on a risk profile and then can funnel you into the appropriate care more effectively.
Thank you so much, Mr. Locsin and Mr. Horan. It is indeed inspiring to hear how different members of the public and private sectors have come together to improve the healthcare system through technology. Our next guest speaker has worked with Index Asia as a healthcare advisor, assisting healthcare companies across the region who are in the growth equity stage through M&A and fundraising. Previously, he worked as a healthcare specialist for private equity firm Partners Group and had a career in medicine as a physician and a pathologist in the United States and Singapore. Here to share with us his insights on the biggest challenges of the healthcare industry in the Asia-Pacific region, as well as the trends that have emerged during this current situation, please welcome BioConnexus Ventures Partners and Index Asia's healthcare advisor, Dr. Jamin Park. Hello, Dr. Jamin, and thank you for joining us on Tech Talk on Air.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Dr. Jamin, you have a very interesting presentation to be sharing with us. I'm going to give the floor to you.
Sure, of course. I hope I cover the topic well, because it's a quite broad topic. But obviously, I think we know that the biggest challenge to the healthcare in decades is obviously COVID-19. And it covers many aspects, including the patient access, the shortage of the physicians, etc. But I think one thing I like to focus is the medtech infrastructure. So if you look at the like ventilators, for instance, the equipment you need to help patients sustain during the COVID-19. If you look at all these countries, and if you take a look at the U.S., for example, they had about 160,000 ventilators in stockpile pre-COVID, among which about only 100,000 of the ventilators were functioning, while the actual demand required to meet this COVID was around 200,000. So basically, across the world, all these countries were not adequately prepared, whether you're in the developed market or developing market. In Southeast Asia, this weakness is even more pronounced. If you look at the figures from Indonesia, Thailand, and Philippines, etc., the Philippines had around 1,300 in stockpile, while Thailand had about 10,000, with Indonesia being about 8,000. And this is still grossly inadequate. And this was back in April. And you can know, now in August, you can see what happened after the past few months. So we were definitely not prepared for this pandemic on the medtech front. On the e-healthcare, it's a very a diverse field. The digital healthcare covers various aspects, including virtual care, including EMRs, electronic medical records, as well as screening pharma supplies and analytics. And two trends that were probably the most, I think, pronounced coming out of this pandemic was telehealth, as well as remote monitoring for medtech equipment. One example, the Singapore's MyDoc, the telehealth platform, recorded about 147% surge of daily users 3 months into the pandemic. I think what the trends that are going to be coming more pronounced in the next few years will be the telehealth and medtech remote monitoring capabilities going into tier 2, tier 3 regions, as well as LGU health centers. And in order to do that, there are various digital platforms in the region, but they need a strong local partner to drive this entry. And that's where I think Philippines strategics could work on, is partnering with digital players from overseas.
Dr. Jamin, thank you so much for those insights. I just wanted to jump on your point here. You did mention that we were unprepared here in the Asia-Pacific region compared to the other countries. But were we actually getting there before the pandemic? Were the trends already pointing towards the digitalization of healthcare? Or is this something that has now accelerated capabilities that we did not really have before? Are we going to be seeing much more disruption in this sector, or are we going to be seeing a continuation of some investment trends, some digitalization trends in the industry that were hopefully present before all of this pandemic came in?
Yes. So telehealth was, of course, has been around for last 9-10 years, and of course, the remote monitoring of the medtech equipment was, I guess, it was in the development, and of course, the electronic medical records with analytics people have been adopting EMRs more and more to reduce the usage of papers. But now with this pandemic, it's going to be even more accelerated. I believe one of the conglomerates president, when they were asked about the use of telehealth, this was pre-COVID. They said that this was a bit too advanced, that they wanted to focus on the bread and butter, that this was not something that they wanted to look at the time. But after the pandemic, of course, now all the big groups here, healthcare providers, are trying to implement the telehealth to minimize the infection spreading, but also I think meet the expectations from the patients. And this I think it's a good sign. However, telehealth is going to be more than just the virtual care. You need also the equipment side, the medtech side, the remote monitoring. So that's where the telehealth can, I think, combine with the medtech and improve the care of the people in Philippines.
Dr. Park, how technologically advanced are consumers to take advantage here in the region? We have a much younger demographic compared to, for instance, Europe. Are we quicker? Have we been quicker to adapt to all of these changes and innovations in the system compared to other regions?
Unfortunately, the answer is actually no. Because as you know, U.S. has been in the forefront with the Teladoc, the largest telehealth platform in the world. Of course, in Southeast Asia, Singapore has been spearheading this as well. Platforms such as MyDoc, Indonesia's HelloDoc already has millions of users. Here, I think the players were still trying to get a hold of the foothold. It's just that they were not able to find the support in the local community, especially with the conglomerates and healthcare providers, until this pandemic happened.
Okay, and our last question, Dr. Park, before we bring in Mitch Locsin here to talk about the PLDT side, just you've been in the M&A space of healthcare for a while now. What are the most exciting technologies you're seeing here, and have the opportunities changed because of the pandemic, and how are we going to move forward in this space?
Okay, well, telehealth definitely is a big topic, because I mean, this is kind of what brought everybody together, especially with COVID-19. But other things would be the remote monitoring of medtech side that all the big MNCs like Medtronic are pursuing. And another angle is, of course, the diagnostics. So COVID-19 also exposed deficiency in the testing side. And there's a lot of movement to shift things into molecular. So there are some deals happening in that as well.
Okay, so thank you for those insights. At this point, I would like to bring back with us on the screen Mr. Mitch Locsin of PLDT to help us, with this discussion, especially from a PLDT point of view. Sir Mitch, do you agree with Dr. Park that, we were unprepared for this? It was very difficult from a technological perspective. And what are the biggest challenges that you are facing?
Thank you, Danny. Yes, I do agree with Dr. Jamin Park. In what he mentioned, telemedicine has been there for how many years already, but the adoption here in the Philippines only took effect after the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis came about. So for the PLDT group, for example, it's taken a little bit of time, and it's mainly because we wanted to make sure that it covers the whole ecosystem. It's not just going to be an app-based appointment setting, online video consulting with your doctor, but it should include the e-prescription capabilities, the tie-up with drugstores so that we could actually also deliver the medicines, the laboratory requests, and eventually the tie-up with the HMOs, and also adopting AI and machine learning. So for example, the remote patient monitoring, which is very important for the near future or the new normal, for chronic care, like the AccuCheck, for example, which does diabetes monitoring and care. That's done remotely. That can be done at the back of your home. So these are the steps that we have taken with PLDT Smart and ePLDT that we will be launching in the next 30 days.
Sir Mitch, has this been part of the team's strategy in PLDT to venture into the healthcare sector? Is this something new that you guys, a new opportunity that came about because of the pandemic? And how big of a part of your plan will this now be in terms of the roadmap?
It's definitely going to be a major part of our approach. And it's mainly because, as you know, Metro Pacific Group of Hospitals is part of the MVP group. And we're not just looking at supporting the MVP group of hospitals. We want to go even further, not just supporting clinics, doctors. We want to go further to even to the barangay level so that everybody can actually start by doing telemedicine before going to any doctor's clinic or to any hospital. There is a DOH or Department of Health mandate actually that is asking the community that everyone has to pass through telemedicine before even going to the hospital or doctor's clinic. So with that, PLDT Group has actually pushed forward in this initiative. Again, it was mainly pushed by the COVID situation, but this is going to play a major part on the solutions that we will be bringing forward in the healthcare industry in the Philippines.
Dr. Jamin, maybe you can add to his point here that this is the future. You are a physician, does this completely replace the face-to-face consultation, the trust that we have? How can you replace, trusting a computer screen, a doctor in a computer screen, vis-a-vis somebody physically examining you? And is this just something temporary while we go through this pandemic and things will be going back to normal, or is this something that we need to be investing resources in?
I mean, of course, this is something we'll have to, continuously invest. And of course, you cannot replace the patient interaction in person because, doctors, besides taking history, they also have to do a physical exam, inspection, the whole picture. So you're basically taking out the whole picture. And that's the limitation with a lot of telehealth platforms right now is that it's really essentially like a souped up Skype. And what they need is equipment, the tools to help with a diagnostic site that's a link with the telehealth platform. So that's probably one reason why, I'm sure the Metro Pacific Group also had a difficulty with the doctor, adoption. And this is not just one group, this is universal. That's probably the one aspect that they're going to have to continue to invest. Even after this pandemic is over, they have to make sure that this telehealth platform is connected with the e-prescription, with the EMR, but also the engagement side, the equipment that can replace or do the best part to replace the patient-doctor interaction.
Sir Mitch, maybe a last comment on that. You have the technology, you are a tech company, and it's probably simpler for you guys to get people on board. As you mentioned, the Metro Pacific has the hospital groups. How do you get the patients on board? How do you get the physicians on board on your platform? And what are your targets here in terms of realistic timelines and number of people that you would like to service?
Yes, so again, as mentioned, we are in the test phase right now with the solutions. I can't mention the partners that we're doing it with, but we're currently live doing demo testing with one of the largest hospitals down south. We also have a partnership in Cebu Hospital. So that covers basically our testing phase with the various hospitals. But from a doctor's perspective, the solution that we are partnering with has already 450 doctors that are live in this telemedicine solution. Again, PLDT's trust is really just making it a complete ecosystem, as Dr. Jamin mentioned. So whether we're going to be bundling it with the SIM cards, the LTE SIM cards, the data plans that they need, the tablets that they need, and completing the whole ecosystem that includes e-prescription and delivery of medicines, for example, and getting the HMOs on board as well. Again, we're not just talking to the various hospitals, doctors, and to the consumers. We want to reach the far-flung barangays as well so that we get to cover the teleconsult side of things to the far-flung places of the country.
Absolutely, a great point there also, as Dr. Jamin Park said, it's very uneven when it comes to telemedicine. You have the capitals and the most developed countries, you mentioned Singapore, much ahead of the curve, and there's a very big need for other provincial areas that we're not reaching to be able to access these services. So thank you so much for those insights. That was, of course, Dr. Jamin Park and Mr. Mitch Locsin. It has been a very inspiring afternoon hearing about how some of today's sectors are accelerating their digital capability in order for all of us to move forward as a society. Now, before we officially close off this program, I would like to invite the President and CEO of SMART and the Chief Revenue Officer of PLDT, Mr. Al Panlilio, to share his insights on the emergence of the e-industries we discussed this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all once again for joining us for the second installation of TechTalk on Air. We at PLDT SMART are in the business of nation building. It is precisely this conviction that fired up the virtue of malasakit in our every endeavor, underpinned by customer centricity, which is our corporate direction, a hallmark of our organization. The changing Philippine economic landscape has inspired us to reframe our business objectives and strategies. In fact, a big part of our CapEx is being allocated to improve our services so that this may be accessible and relevant to more Filipinos here and abroad. As the future of work slowly unfolds, we remain committed, pioneering with our customers the most innovative and effective ways of doing business. We are now starting to see how e-learning is transforming education as we knew it, how e-banking will further enable financial inclusion, how e-commerce will help revitalize our economy, how e-government will accelerate our country's smart city transformation, and most importantly, how e-health will allow our nation to combat this pandemic. While I hope that today's discussions have helped enlighten you on the ways you can elevate your enterprises to take part in the shift towards e-industry, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Today was a glimpse of what we have in store for you as we partner with you in accelerating your own digital transformation. As the landscapes of work and business continue to change, we remain committed to innovating for the Filipino people. Let us keep the conversations going. Let us learn from each other and forge all new paths towards success. With this, I invite all of you to join us in making an impact like never before at the upcoming Philippine Digital Convention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Al Panlilio, our esteemed speakers, and to everyone who tuned in. What a fruitful afternoon it has been. I hope you guys were all enlightened with what our speakers have shared with all of us. It's going to be a tough road ahead, but with the right technological tools and the roadmap, we can all get through this difficult time together. Now, on behalf of PLDT Enterprise and One News, thank you very much for spending this afternoon with us. This was Tech Talk on Air Part 2, and this has been your host, Danny Laurel. Stay safe, everyone.